How has Qredo evolved from the very first version of the platform?
Yeah, I've got an interesting anecdote. Obviously, me and Jules were not here from the beginning, but we've been told there's, as any startup, there's this tales that goes around on the early days of the company. And I'm not sure if many of you knows, but the way Qredo came about was really just a protocol play. The application, the UI wasn't really a consideration. But how do you pitch something so different than anything else without a visual representation? How do you pitch a multi-party compute system controlled by a chain with an end-user compute zero-knowledge proof protocol? That doesn't quite flow well on a deck. What the team did was really build the platform that you can see today as a proof of concept, as a way to show people, hey, we've done it, look what we did. And as any proof of concept on any startup I've ever worked with, they end up being the production service and end up sort of growing into what we know today. But really, from that POC, we learn a lot, right? We really made it for ourselves to begin with, and with a ton of assumption on who was the user. And now we know who the user is, we know what the problems are. And the new version of the platform is really almost a bit more of an educated take at how does a user experience look like to make self-custody feel like a service, feel like something as simple as setting up your rules in your organization or your investment risk. So there's a lot that went through it. And if you think of our most popular product, the Web3 wallet, the ability of signing transaction that come from MetaMask institutional, for instance, those were not part of day one. Those came about as we went along. So that's another interesting thing, that it's really hard to plan these things ahead of time, right? You need to put something out and see what works.
And I think it's an amazing, there was a genesis story of platforms like ourselves. Like they're not just, they carry a lot of weight, right? So the vision of building a trustless security primitive for the crypto ecosystem is kind of what got guys like Gabe and I across the board, because we've been in crypto long enough that I think we're reasonably well versed into what the hard problem of crypto is, and security and wallet infrastructure is effectively, to this day, the hard problem, and we can sort of riff on that all day long. But when we looked at Qredo and the opportunity that it represented to build upon Qredo, that kind of foundational vision is something that still is very vibrant within the company today. And the accidental productization is the same way as figuring out, okay, how we're going to actually build this so that it has longevity, how we're going to build it so that actual users come to it. And so when it comes to thinking about the change that we are observing now, I think that we now, our mindset has fully migrated towards the users in that sense. And so like this kind of this dedication we have to building an exceptional product that scales is something that's a natural evolution of what this original vision was, which is a trusted security primitive. What I also love about Qredo at this point, though, is what's not changed, right? Is that this first point about the security primitive that I alluded to, it was a very, very ambitious R&D project. It was really stoked. This is where the industry is going, and we still have a huge portion of the company's culture, of some of the real talent that's in the company, and that excludes me. I'm happy to say that I'm not a ZK researcher, but we have a real appetite within the business to not just build product, but also always reflect on what our product looks like and needs to look like, with that forward-looking mindset within the company. So it's such a very, very attractive dynamic, because I think of what it creates for the users. But for us to work in a place like this is incredible.
Yeah, I completely agree. If the genesis of a company is built on a bold bet like ours, you can expect other bold bets coming from us. It's just part of the DNA. There's no escaping. There's no boxes we stay within, I think. But it's also as exciting. And I think the point you're making around focusing on the user now is so much broader than just us. I think it's somewhat, you see it across many other projects and companies, is you've got the primitive, you've got a sense, but the next round of success is really down to the fundamentals on, can you solve a user problem? Can you really get the adoption you need? So I think it's the right time to, as many startups, to change the focus around our users and the problems they have, to ensure we really get the next chapter right for them.
Yeah, I think that even goes beyond this industry, where we're starting to see this big shift towards focusing on the human and the user as opposed to just the product. And we're seeing people as people and how we can help and benefit them. And also kind of looking away from just monetary value and what can we do to better the lives of others and all that stuff, which is great to see.
Particularly in self-custody, which is one of the most primitive thing we can really contribute on within our career, I think.
Exactly. And I think it's like, if you look at crypto overall and our journey, let's say that we're now fully embedded into what crypto was and is set to become. I think the leap from the kind of the benefit from the idea to the benefit was very, very quick, but perhaps a bit naive over time. So just because Bitcoin is a promise of financial self-empowerment, for example, doesn't mean it actually will be that to most people by virtue of just existing. And I think that this whole we intermediate with that outcome because we're building products that actually deliver that outcome. But it's an important part of the industry's maturing process, right? It's like, yes, there is a lot of underpinning promises there. And I think, and self-custody, it sounds like a boring topic if it wasn't for the fact that this is how empowerment is actually expressed from a UX standpoint for people that do want to be engaged in the crypto industry. So it is a fascinating point of evolution. I do think that because of the way that the crypto industry has evolved and matured, it kind of started from the technology is the solution. I think that still permeates in a lot of stuff that we're hearing today. But the requirements have changed now as well, and I think especially in the bear market, the recognition that you need a user. You need the community is one thing, the user is another. Ideally, they intersect, but they need to be treated as two separate entities, and you're only going to succeed if you do what's right for both.
Yeah, and I think if you guys have been around and I know you have a few bear markets before, there's a lot of very foundational stuff that gets built during these periods because you're not chasing headlines, you're not chasing momentum. You're actually focusing on the problem that really captures the mind share and eventually customer base that you need on the next wave. So I think that's an incredibly important cycle. Is an unpleasant one to go through, but as it is, our economy moves through cycles, and so are we.
Yeah, definitely. And it was very interesting also to see kind of on socials and in the media, self-custody gaining so much traction. Whereas before that, I know, especially when we were explaining our product to others, many of like the new users or more non-crypto natives coming in didn't fully understand self-custody. And there's a lot of questions of, well, why wouldn't we just keep it on exchange? Why would I do self-custody when I can just keep it here? And there's that lack of understanding.
It's one of those concepts that unless it's put in question, you don't think about it, right? You don't think about your deposits in a bank being at risk until
life insurance until you on your deathbed. I mean, that's a bit of an intense.
That escalated quickly, but the analogy is right. It's one of those things that they need to be in the fabric of how we work, how we service, for them to be considered. Otherwise, it's really through painful experience that you learn these lessons. And I think we've been through enough painful experiences right now to value.
We've literally gone through the entire, the last year is in a way is that we've gone through the entire spectrum of everything that could possibly go wrong in the worst way possible. We've had the thing that could go wrong in the worst way possible by maybe perhaps applying too much trust in just the code itself. And that's and I would label that as your DeFi hacks. When basically, a bridge's integrity is compromised, when a pool gets siphoned, et cetera, a lot of that actually comes back to the fact that we just assume that because the code takes care of it, and because DeFi is entirely automated, nothing bad can happen. Well, actually it can, because code is code's got nowhere to hide, but it also it's got nothing to lose either. And I think that's the part of what we're exposed to, which is, okay, there's challenges there still as we grow. And then the worst that could have happened in the context of counterparty risk has happened numerous times. And I think that it really escalated to the FTX example. I think that the recent banking crisis is actually different and not really a crypto problem per se, but it's still a very good illustration of how we should think about counterparty risk. So once you kind of take those two very broad examples into consideration, then we presented as a platform with this really painful validation of both our vision and also the product that we're building, and I think that's where I'd say, day one today, like as we're doing this interview, we find ourselves as an industry, but also as a company.
Listeners, make sure to check out new Qredo platform and let us know what you think. Your feedback is invaluable to help Qredo continue to evolve and enhance its services. And don't forget to keep your eye out on our social channels for all the latest news and updates. We'll be sure to keep you updated on any exciting developments as they unfold. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.